in like a house party at my place, and I kind of had two different worlds, right? I had like my nice, relatively preppy friends who went to college and drank beer and smoked pot, and then I had my other world of people who, sold and did hard drugs and, didn't go to college, let's just say, of all races and backgrounds. And those worlds collided. And throwing a house party, there's like 20, 30 kids, all like 19, 20 years old. Most of them never seen anything in their life like that. And 3 dudes kicked the front door down with guns and start waving them around, being like, I don't even know what they were saying. Because I was in the kitchen. I peek my head around the corner, see what's going on. And I always say this when I kind of share my story. I said, being the gangster that I was, because I kind of thought I was, I bolted out the back door. I booked it. I was gone. I vividly remember zero thought of what was going on, and I was just fight or flight. I was gone. And here's the best part. So after 10 minutes, I don't know how much time had passed, the thought occurs to me. And I say, and I really believe that it was kind of a God-given thought. The thought occurred to me, like, what if my friends are being hurt right now, right? And so I decide to go back to see if I can help or do something. But by the time I get back, police are swarming. Kids are crying on the front porch. Turns out the guys were in and out. They saw the people, were like, oh, fuck this, and dipped. And I essentially walked back to a house filled with cops, to a house that was filled with the drugs that I was selling. And, yeah. Actually, I don't remember if I called the cops. I'd say that I called the cops. I did. I called the cops.
Nice. You called the cops on yourself.
I called the cops on myself.
Okay.
There we go. Yeah. I was trying to gather my thoughts. Yeah. I called the cops on myself. Trying to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so I staged my own intervention, essentially, is what I did.
So from there, okay, then did your parents get involved? What was
Yes.
the ramifications from, and how much drugs did you have on you, or in the house rather, that the cops found?
So I had this big chest, and it was, at the time, I really couldn't tell you, but typically I would have like a pound of weed, and I don't know how much was in there. I think I had actually just gotten robbed a week prior, which is another stupid situation. I wasn't a good drug dealer, so I just had some weed taken. But there was coke, a bunch of nitrous and pills and Adderall and scales and baggies, and it was just a treasure chest of nonsense and BS. But I don't really remember how much was in it. I think I got a little lucky, and God kind of intervened as well, because I'll tell you later what I found out, what I was being charged with, whatever. But the story goes, so I'm sitting there, and I remember vividly, like, the walls closing in. I lived a very delusional life at the time I was rapping, which is, it's a true story, man. And I was just living a delusional life, I was just high every day. I was trying to be the next Mac Miller, but yet I wasn't actually doing anything. I just had a microphone in my room that I would yell into when I got high. And I thought I was a drug dealer. I thought I was all these things. And but the cops are sitting me down, and, your life's over, bud. You're an idiot. Can't believe you did this, whatever. And I'm sitting there just, like, staring ahead, right? And just reality's, like, setting in. And then the strangest thing happened. They took my chest, said, get your shit together, and they walked out. I still don't know what the hell happened, right? Like, I don't know why I wasn't arrested. So I, like, get really high and pass out, wake up the next day, and one of my good friends wakes me up knocking on the door, and I'm like, still, like, what the fuck just happened? And so one of my roommates, essentially, my roommates get together, and they're like, you can't live here. which is fair.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, what the fuck do I do? So I call Mom, who only lives actually like half an hour away. And I don't even know. I think she knew a little bit because I think I called her in a bit of a panic at some point and told her some shit had happened and whatever. Because I think I was worried about those same guys going to her house, because at times I would go to her house and like sell some shit out of there. And if it was who I thought it was, they had been there. So I called her, and I ended up going back there. I had nowhere else to stay. So I'm at her house and getting high. And I had lost my phone in all this mess. And my friend comes over one day, and like 2-3 days later, and we're getting high, and then he leaves. In the middle of the night, I wake up sick, and I realized he had taken everything. He didn't leave me anything, and I didn't have a phone. So I steal her phone from her bedside table, and I text him, and I'm like, yo, what the fuck, dude? I'm sick. Like, why'd you take everything? He's like, bro, I'm sorry. I'm already home. I don't have the car. You'll have to wait. And I'm like, fuck you. I don't delete the text messages. Again, God, stupidity. God gave me stupidity so I could just get the fuck out of my own way. And my mom wakes me up the next day like, what the fuck? Because she didn't know. I had gotten into a lot of trouble throughout my teenage years. I was a real hoodlum of sorts, and loved causing chaos and just doing stupid shit. But this was the first time she had ever really been like, what do you mean sick? And I lied. I said, NyQuil, Mom, I'm sick. He took the NyQuil. And I'd lied through my teeth for years, and I think she had bought in a lot of it. I was, like most of us, I'm a pretty good liar, when I want to be. And she was like, tell me the truth. And I was like, I shoot heroin. She collapsed in front of me, screaming, crying. And I don't come from an emotional family. I come from a very intellectual. My mom's a doctor. My dad's a PhD professor. They're both very quiet people, very, just studious types, academics. And I don't remember if I'd ever seen her cry before. And I remember the only thing I was feeling was, what do I need to do to get you to stop crying right now? Because I am so uncomfortable. Like, I was not in a place in my life, obviously, where I could, like, emotionally process me being the reason my mom is on the floor crying and screaming. I was like, just stop. And so that was the reason I agreed to go to treatment, was to get her to stop crying. And I've been sober since the day following. The day following, I shot up in a Holiday Inn bathroom while she was banging on the door. Yeah. And we drove to treatment.
What did that first step? Let's put just to get your mom to stop crying, right? The reason behind you going to treatment was to get her to stop crying. What was the first step when you really truly admitted that you had a problem and surrendering? When did that happen in that process? Did you go away to inpatient?
Yeah, so I went to a treatment center like 4 hours away in central western Pennsylvania. A lot of people know about it. I don't know if we name drop on here. Karen.
I went to Karen.
Okay. We're Karen guys.
Karen alum, baby.
Yeah, we're Karen guys. Look at us.
On the hill?
Yep,
Yeah.
we're on the hill, man.
I went to Karen.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is October 19th, 2011.
It's in Reading, Pennsylvania.
Good old Reading, Pennsylvania.
Shout out to Karen, man.
Shout out. Yo, they saved my life. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, they saved my life. But, that question, for me, I always try to just be 100% real and not give, well, first of all, I hate cookie cutter answers. I don't know, but because for me, surrender, still to this day, is this push and pull process. You know what I mean? If I surrender to the idea of what it means to be a good husband, on any given moment, I can be a selfish prick, and I'm not surrendering to a process or a moment, and it's happening constantly. So when I think about early sobriety, it was very much that, you know. But I can tell you pretty confidently, I had no intentions of being sober, and there was no surrendering for a good bit. My third day there, I was beating my chest, and I said, I'm a spiritual warrior. I don't surrender. So if that gives you any idea of what I went in there. I just wanted to get out of there. I was dating a girl back home, believe it or not, who was like a good girl. And I wanted
You're
to
in love, dude.
Yeah. And I wanted to get back to her. I wanted to get back to my, my rap career was about to take off. I had like 6 views on, I don't even know if I had a SoundCloud. I was just yelling in my room. But there was no surrendering. I was just surrendering to the reality of my current situation. That's what I can say. I am blessed to be really not that tough. I am an incredibly sensitive boy, which makes me a pretty decent therapist. But I am not built for the struggle. Not, I am not interested in being homeless. I'm not interested in scrapping and fighting. I was never my experience, upper middle class white kid who sold drugs out of his parents' house and just, but I never struggled. That's the truth. Mentally, emotionally, spiritually, I struggled, but that's the truth, and when I was beating my chest saying I'm a spiritual warrior, I don't surrender, they did what they know how to do best, which was like, okay, then leave. Right. And I'm like, well, I need money. And they were like, yeah, you do, don't you? And for the first time in my life, I realized I have nowhere to go. And I'm a 20-year-old child who made like $200 a week selling drugs. And I had no idea how to live life. And so I was just like, fine. So if you call that surrender, that's what that looked like.
Yeah, of course. It's funny because it's funny now because, I'm still sober. But in the beginning, I faked it. I had to. And I had very smart feet. So even for the listeners out there, if you aren't yet convinced, you're confused, just have smart feet. Just keep going to meetings, right? There's a reason that you stepped foot in that first meeting. Your normal, weekend non-addict or alcoholic doesn't just stumble into a meeting. Maybe a bad weekend but for the most part, just having that smart feet. And I remember saying my thing was oxys. Mm-hmm. So I was like, all right, the plan is I got intervention by my family the 18th of February, 2018. And the plan was I was going to quit oxys indefinitely, but I'm just going to start it off. No drinking, no smoking weed, no oxy. Eventually, once I get the 90-day chip, then I'll start drinking again. And then it's funny, I had smart feet, and I just kept going and showing up and hearing the feelings, relating to the feelings. And I got to that 90-day mark, and I said, you know what? I feel so much better than I did 90 days ago. Mm-hmm. Let me do the no drinking thing as well as the pills and everything else, mood and mind altering substances, to 6 months. And then I got to 6 months, and I'm like, holy shit, my life got significantly better again. And it kept getting better and better. And then here I am now, 6.5 years later, like, fuck no, I'm not. These are symptoms of the bug. If I pick up a drink, it doesn't mean I just can't pick up pills. If I pick up a drink, all right, yeah, maybe I'll get away with it one night, just having, 3 drinks or something like that. But then I'm going to be thinking about it the entire next day. Then I'm going to be drinking like a madman all day, every day. And then eventually I'm going to go back to doing pills, and everything is just going to go right down the tube. So
self-knowledge.
Yeah.
I got I'll tell you, not to switch. I was going to say switch to professional mode, but the truth is there's something I've learned, and it's made me, I think, a better therapist, is there's not a big gap between who I am as a human being and as a sober man and who I am as a licensed clinician. Some of the boundaries change, in session, but even then, not much if it's relevant. So what I was going to say is, professionally, my thoughts are pretty simple. It's that it's about risk and probability. I stopped having the conversation with people about whether they need to be sober a long time ago. And I tell people, I said, forget the word need. It doesn't exist. We don't need to do anything. I don't need to be in this podcast. I don't need to pray. I don't need to eat. I don't need to sleep. I don't need to be alive. Not to be morbid, but I could choose not to live right now. Right? And part of what I help teach people off rip, no matter what we're dealing with, is everything we do is a choice. Because people get really stuck on need. I don't know if you relate with that. You tell somebody they need to do something. I don't care if it's clean your room or get sober. The truth is that's a lie. You can choose not to clean your room. There might be consequences to that. And you can choose not to be sober today. There might be consequences to that. Right? And I think that I wish that was more of the message to anybody struggling with anything, but particularly when we're talking about drugs and alcohol, which is you don't need to do anything. But the probability of bad things happening, particularly dying, particularly legal consequences, relationships falling apart, and your life sucking, they're higher when you're using. So for today, right now in this moment, why don't you just reflect on the choices that you have? And that really just brings it down, and you can kind of maybe feel the clarity like in the room when you're just like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. So that's something that I feel really passionate about, that even like good treatment centers and well-intentioned people, I think, don't realize how much they're telling people what they need to do. And I don't think that exists. I don't think there are needs, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So at what point in your sobriety did you start actually going to school and pursuing a professional career in mental health?
So it was a year and a half sober. And it was something that I think was always part of the plan. And I don't even mean just from a sobriety standpoint. When I talk to people about, or people ask me, should I go back to school, whatever, I can only speak on my experience and how I was raised. It was never an option not to go back to school. That's the truth. Like I never imagined my life not being educated. If there was a religion in my household, it was education. If I was worried about something or unhappy, go to school. You get good grades, you'll be just fine. And safe to say that didn't suffice for me, but it was always part of the plan. So I went to Palm Beach County Community College with a year and a half sober. And my journey began. It was humbling, but what I can say is that for the first time in my entire life, and I was good at school, I was grateful for school. I was excited to be there because I had learned, I kind of had so I went to Renaissance from Karen. I got saunced pretty hard. God bless Renaissance. And
I'm sorry, this is in the extended. This is after you're inpatient. You did 30 days inpatient, or 28, whatever it is, in Redding, and then you got sent down to Renaissance in Delray Beach. So that's how you found your way to South Florida.
That's my story.
Okay, so go ahead.
So I, Renaissance, the kind of the inpatient experience was therapeutically pretty powerful. But as far as what we're referring to, one of their big kind of models, if you will, intervention was enabling, was to address it at the core and teach families how much you're enabling and how you giving people money to make themselves comfortable and avoid consequences is killing them, right? And so my mother in particular, she had a hard time with that. She pushed back hard, but she ended up relenting, and I was taking the bus, and I had to find a job. I got a 30-day bus pass, and I was told, go figure it out. And I'm 20 years old. and I had never had a real job in my life. I had mowed like 12 lawns and, like I said, sold weed, you know. And I worked at a Chinese restaurant for like 3 weeks and got fired because I came in way too high. And I answered the phone like, what up? I was taking the orders. I ate like a 6-gram moon pie and thought I could do my job. But I'd never had a real job. And I was scared, man. You know, I felt that pressure that is real life. And I think that's an incredibly important thing for us to feel, because I think that helps kind of reveal to us what we're capable of. You know, that's why enabling is such a big issue. You know, you don't find out what you're capable of if you're not forced to find out a lot of the time. And I got a job for $8 an hour at the corner bakery near the Boca Raton Mall. And I would wake my ass up at 4:40 in the morning, walk a mile or two down Atlantic Avenue in my one pair of shoes and get on the 5:50 bus, take it over to Corner Bakery, and for $8 an hour, you know, do that every day, 6 days a week. And I did that for about a year. And I learned a lot about the world, to say the least. I learned a lot about what it meant to work and to particularly, the world is hard and it owes us nothing, absolutely nothing. Nobody cares that I'm smart. My resume was a joke, you know. I swear I'm smart though, you know. Like I take tests really well. They're like, great, clean those dishes, you know. And that's what all kind of clicked for me as far as like education and career standpoint. Like I'm gonna have to work for this. Nobody is gonna give me anything, and really inspired me. And I'm really grateful that I learned that lesson, because I think there's a lot of good young people out there right now who don't have the blessing of that lesson, because they didn't make any mistakes and they just like went to college and are doing fine, you know. And I think they get smacked in the face when they get out into the real world, because they haven't had to kind of learn the value of a dollar a little bit and actually see, like I said, the hard reality that it doesn't matter where you come from or who you are. Like,